heralding America first, President Trump seems to relish in this idea of America's dominance around the globe while running away from the responsibility that comes with that dominance. Case in point, COP30. So COP30 is a conference of world countries on climate change. And of course, President Trump has claimed not to agree with the world on the way to deal with climate change, right? He hasn't come as far as saying he doesn't believe in climate change. But if President Trump believes his idea of climate change or dealing with climate-related issues is the best way the world should go, I would expect that he would be in Brazil right now trying to convince the world that he has the most sensible idea when it comes to climate change. But his decision to stay away and get all US government officials to stay away from COP30 tells me that Trump doesn't believe his rap as much as he says he does. I'll give you my reason for saying that. The former president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo, went to COP28 in 2023 and spoke out against the fact that Africa is expecting to dance with the whole world at the same drum when it comes to climate change, but to have pressing issues of industrialization to deal with. And he spoke out against like just relying on solar panels and wind turbines for energy generation when we have bigger energy needs, right? Here's why I am bringing up the president of Ghana in this contest, or the former president of Ghana. Wind turbines is President Trump's go-to talking point when it comes to climate change. And yet, he couldn't go to COP30 to speak out against wind turbines when the former president of Ghana was able to go to COP28 to do that. That is why I do not respect President Trump's decision to stay away from COP30. But I'll break all this down in this conversation. My name is Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics from the perspective of an African. I live in DFW in Texas. And right now, today is really, really chilly. But I just finished a big bowl of banku and tilapia, so I feel good. Anyway, let's get into it. Because this is a very important issue, I will look at my laptop a bit more than I usually do, because I don't want to get dates and stuff like that wrong. All right. So COP. Americans will say COP. Ghanaians will say COP. C-O-P. Is short for Conference of the Parties of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it was put together in 1995 after the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted by the UN in 1992. So from 1995, all the countries that accepted the UN framework on climate change started attending the COP or COP1 in 1995. So this year is COP30 because it's the 30th conference. 2020 conference was not held because of COVID. So today, this will have been 31. So it's 30 because of 2020. And COP has been happening, and each year, the conversation on climate change has happened, right? And three things happens at each COP, right? Things about getting to the goal of limiting global warming, reducing carbon emissions, and supporting countries facing climate impact. So President Trump says that the supporting countries facing climate impact is a way of getting US to pay more for other countries to deal with climate change. But again, I'll go back to the speech given by the president of Ghana, former President Akufo-Addo. Former President Akufo-Addo spoke at COP28, was it 27? Yeah, COP27 in 2022, where he said countries who are emitting more carbon and causing more climate change in the world need to compensate countries who are feeling the impact of climate change. So countries like the US and big industrialized countries tend to produce more carbon footprints on the globe, and countries like Ghana and the smaller industrialized countries feel the impact of those carbon emissions, right? And so President Trump says that that is a way to get the countries who are industrialized countries like the US to pay more for other countries, but that's not what is happening. US, you are causing more damage to the world, and so you're supposed to pay more for it. That is, I don't think that everybody who watches my video believes in climate change. I do believe that climate change is real because of have ice. I grew up in a place in Ghana called Adan. And Adan used to be a very neglected area. Adan is still one of the poorest places in Ghana, even though it's very close to the capital of Ghana, Accra. And I'll tell you why. Because the geographical location of Adan used to be that whenever it rained, it will flood in Adan and the rain will hold the water for days. So living in Adan was practically impossible. I know you are thinking the same thing happens in Accra, but Accra flood was way better than Adan flood because of geographical reasons. It's sandy in Adan and whatever. And so years ago or decades ago, my people found a way for them to be able to live in Adan. The way they did that was, if you are from Ghana, Adan people are known for eating kokonte. Kokonte is made from cassava that is dried and pounded, so can stay for a very long time. And we eat kokonte with dried fish, which also can last for a very long time. What I'm trying to say is, before refrigeration, kokonte and dried fish and pepper were things that you could store for a very long time. So the people who were able to live in what is now known as Adan were people who were able to find food that could stay in the room with them, because whenever it rained and it flooded, you had to stay in your rooms for days. The flooding Adan wasn't as crazy as you get into your room, even though it did sometimes. So you had to stay in your room for days till the rain or the water subsided before you came out. And so the food culture of Adan people is dictated by the climate, right? These days, it doesn't flood as much in Adan anymore because it doesn't rain as much as it did in Adan anymore because of climate change. So because of small things like this, it will be hard for me to come and be like, I don't believe in climate change, because the climate is changing in my hometown. You understand what I'm saying? So good. And so COP1, 2, 3 were conferences that have happened over the years. The US were participating. But earlier this year, when Donald Trump won re-election, he removed the US from the Paris Accord again. The Paris Accord is also an agreement between all the countries in the world to deal with climate change. So basically, the US is not a player in the climate change conversation anymore. Why am I bringing this up? President Trump is also talking about the fact that the US will lobby to kill the deals that will be happening at COP30 this year. So my thoughts were this: if the deals that will be happening at COP30 is something the US doesn't agree with, and Trump is undoubtedly the most powerful person in the world as a president of the United States, if he were in Brazil right now, and he and his cabinet or whoever he goes or travels with were in Brazil right now, he would have had a better chance lobbying against the deals that he wants to kill than staying in his home country and shouting about wanting those deals dead. You understand? I believe that presence matter. I used to work in the music business. And as much as streaming controls the music business, the most important thing when it comes to selling an artist is contact. People love artists they know and can relate to. You understand? The same way, Trump, because of his stature, because of his notoriety, whenever he is in the room, everybody gets in line. So if Trump really believes his raps, I use the word raps, like in hip hop, like I told you before, I used to work in the music business. In hip hop, when they say a rapper is living his rap, it means that he's authentic, he's a truth speaker. So when I say his beliefs is rap, what I mean is if Donald Trump is speaking the truth or his truth about climate change, he will be in Brazil trying to lobby for his position. Anyway, I wanted to highlight that and contrast that with Ghana. The president of Ghana won't be at COP30 in Brazil, but the Minister of Environment in Ghana will lead or is leading the Ghanaian delegation to COP30, and Ghana is going to speak about our role in leading Africa towards a clean energy future. Ghana, even under President Akufo-Addo, passed some laws to steer Ghana towards a clean energy future. And Ghana is one of the leaders of clean energy in Africa currently. Actually, Ghana has always been a leader of clean energy in Africa. The primary form of electricity in Ghana is hydroelectric power, which is a form of clean energy. And we also have almost every form of energy in Ghana is clean energy. Ghana has spoken in the past about wanting to use natural gas, which is not clean energy, as part of our electricity system, but we don't currently use natural gas on a big level, right? So Ghana is really a leader or has been a leader in clean energy for over 60 years. And so Ghana is going to go to COP30 to continue our advocacy and our leadership in clean energy, which is why I wanted to contrast what Trump is doing. Trump is trying to move the world towards the past, and it all boils down to Trump's big thing is industrialization. He wants jobs back in the US, and he believes that factories needs to be rebuilt in the US. And so when you are rebuilding factories or building factories, you tend to emit more carbon. I believe that is Donald Trump's big issue when it comes to climate change. So I believe that is why he's anti-climate change. I don't know. He has never offered any philosophical reason or even scientific reason against climate change. For me, personally, I'll listen to anybody. If anybody has any point on any position, I'll listen to it, I'll read the material, and if it's convincing to me, I'll agree with it. If it's unconvincing to me, I'm like, okay, you made some points, I don't agree with them. So COP30 is happening this week. If something big breaks out at COP30, I will speak on it. The Minister of Environment in Ghana have already spoken about the President of Ghana's message to COP30. There was nothing really groundbreaking that he said over there. And so I'll pay attention to COP30. If anything groundbreaking happens, I'll share with you. So subscribe to my channel if you are interested in knowing more about geopolitics from the perspective of an African. So this was me explaining why me as an African disagree with President Trump's decision to boycott COP30. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.